this isn't really an evaluation, but it's applied research, is going back to that reservation homeless study that we do every 3 years. One of the things that I really have appreciated about that study is when we first started doing it in 2006, we had to go to each of the tribes separately and kind of convince them to participate and tell them about it. And then they went through these like tribal council resolutions. So, big high level government, tribal government approval to participate in this type of a project. And then the first couple times we did it, we gave them their data back, and I just know it went into someone's file somewhere and nobody really even did anything with it. But now we've been doing it for a number of years, and the tribes have, 5 of the tribes that we work with have all convened together to form this tribal housing collaborative. And they are now using our data to advocate at the state to get a certain slice of the resources and funding that tribes were never even eligible for before they had this data in hand. It was all going to these continuum of care regions that serve different regions of the state. And then the tribes used the data that we produced for them to show how overrepresented American Indians are among the homeless population in the state, and that therefore they should get some of that money too to address homelessness on the reservations in the way that they see fit. So now they have access to this pot of funds called FHPAP, which is like Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program or something. And so, yeah, all the tribes can get that money and prevent tribal members who are living on the reservation from becoming homeless, because they can access this pot of money to give people emergency assistance. So that's a pretty concrete example. Again, it's not exactly evaluation, but it's like applied research with the tribes. And I mean, I guess it could sort of be viewed as evaluation because all the tribes in the state have these long-term plans to end homelessness. And one of the reasons why we do this count every 3 years is to see, do we have more homeless people? Do we have less homeless people? Is there a change in the homeless population from before? Maybe like we found over time that more or less a higher proportion of the population is working, or more people have severe persistent mental illness, then that can help to inform, what resources are made available. So in that sense, it's sort of evaluation, I guess. The first time they had to do this tribal council resolutions to even participate in the study, and then all the tribes did another one after we had given them a draft of the report that they could look at and say, okay, this is okay to release. And now they all decided this year they just want to do one tribal resolution at the beginning and just say, let Wilder do the whole thing, and then we'll look at it at the end, because now they trust that we will actually produce a report that reflects the things that they're interested in, and that we're not going to use it in ways that they don't want us to be using it. I think they were worried initially about us going out and trying to get some, publications or something to admire the problem of homeless American Indians in Minnesota for a bunch of academics or something. And so once they realized that wasn't our intention, and that we've proven that repeatedly, it's been a lot easier to do the process of the study, and actually just get the tribes on board. And they do a lot of the data collection. I mean, we provide volunteers, but they have to do quite a bit of work as well. They don't have to pay for it at all, but their housing staff have to do a lot of work. So I think data use is the area where we are mostly support them. So after we give them their data back, I always tell them, I'm available if you want to talk about how you're going to use this. And sometimes the tribes will contact me if they're writing a grant to start a new supportive housing facility or something. And they'll say, well, how do I get this data and use it for this? And so helping them with using their data to seek additional resources. And I'm hoping even more so in the future, we can use the data to help that tribal collaborative housing group use it for planning purposes, so that they can, again, sort of decide as a group how they're going to target their resources and what interventions they need to focus on in order to address the most pressing problems among the people experiencing homelessness. So that's part of what we do, is support that. Probably depends a little bit on how radical you want to get, as far as what the next steps solutions might be. But I mean, I think that I was just talking this morning with a couple young men who are Lakota from South Dakota, and their dad is an elder who's really thought of as a spiritual leader, like all throughout South Dakota and into the Twin Cities area. I mean, he's called upon from high up leaders and foundations to moderate and facilitate events and sort of give opening remarks and his thoughts on things, because he's a spiritual leader for our community, and really the broader community also sees him that way. And he talks about Wopasi, which is the Lakota word for research. And I forget exactly how, like, the literal translation, but I feel so his sons and him and I are trying to start this Indigenous Youth Research Center. And my vision for it would be like the blending together, like giving these youth an opportunity to learn the traditional knowledge and how that applies to research and evaluation, but also having a chance to get access to some of the social science methods, and also the social capital of having a PhD in, so, you know, sociology or whatever that can bring you in this society. And so, I mean, I don't know if that's actually going to end up being a thing or not, but that type of model, I think, of like working with youth and having them have a chance to learn from both different perspectives, and also from these guys are working on this water issues. So they've actually they've traveled like with the United Nations and met Indigenous people from New Zealand and other places that are also working on water issues in their community. And so I think that's another thing that's cool that I see more happening more recently, is Indigenous communities learning from each other about how these, you know, things work and stuff. So I think that would be another thing that I would see as like a solution, is people instead of all being separated, you know, this tribal community over here and this tribal community, it's like if all Indigenous peoples can come together and sort of recognize there are certain commonalities about how we view the world and our place in it, and stuff that can, I think, help to inform a lot of work, evaluation and public policy, you know, a lot of other things. So